Jet is well known for the legacy that Godwin and Nick and the teams led. But where are we, and what was my learnings the last couple of years in this area, is that by collaborating we can be more effective. Jet is so ideally positioned in the ecosystem to bring together collaborations, and I see a couple of those come together the last while. So I'm excited where we are, Peliwe, but it's been a rocky path. It's been a difficult path for us, and hopefully we can talk more about that today.
Very interesting. I mean, we're talking about, 2 to 3 decades of South Africa's history, and education for that matter. I think the good thing, or a good thread in those 3 decades is about being able to dream and turning dreams into visions. So the whole amalgamation of the 17 departments started with a dream of where South Africa was going, and that was turned into a vision. I mean, a lot of a big part of those visions actually was almost shooting in the dark. That those whole policy, propositions of between 1990 and 1998, this is shooting in the dark. I mean, we didn't have experience. We had to, suggest what we thought would work better. But here's the thing. I think Jet, in the entire 3 decades, played the role of a temperature gauge.
What do you mean about that?
I'll explain that. So when we thought we had OBE and, Jet would go back to classrooms, and check what our kids know, how our kids are actually being taught, what do these policies mean in the classroom, and feedback into the system. And I think that was a very, very strategic role that Jet has played. And I think at this point, it's good to bring in a very important piece of work that Nick oversaw, the Getting Learning Right. I mean, that piece of research, I think, was very useful at that point. It kind of combed across the education system and policies to see what was important, to take further, or to focus on to take this country further. So again, that was part of the monitor role, temperature gauge, role. Very important. Let me finish by saying, in the 3 decades, my view is, and a lesson we need to take forward, you don't win at macro development level if you don't have effective institutions like JET. So it was JET, it was the CPD, it was EPUs, and so on. You want to have a close knit of effective institutions that supports government and support the thinking about macro development.
It's nice that you talk about dreams, Godwin. Some of your dreams can turn bad, So OBE was a big dream, James, absolutely. Very soon turned into a nightmare. And Getting Learning Right, Godwin, absolutely right, came out in 1999, just 1 year after the implementation of Curriculum 2005. And that was really a trenchant criticism of that whole approach. So I think you're right, Godwin, strong institutions that look critically, as a critical friend of government at policies, are these going to work? So some of our dreams didn't turn out that way, learning by experience. But now we've got a very solid curriculum. The whole system has stabilized since those days. Learning started improving 15 years ago. So now on all the big international tests, Pearls, TIMS, SACMEC, you name it, the gradient is upwards for South Africa. Slow but steady, but that's probably due to a good curriculum, stable schools, and a steady improvement across the board.
The thing that Godwin and Nick both raised was a little bit important for me around government capacity. So all the things JET's done for 3 decades has been very reliant and interactive with government of the time, whether it's 1 or 2 departments. What we've seen happening, and particularly the last kind of 7-8 years while I've been at JET, is that the government departments are waning. They're waning in terms of leadership, they're waning in terms of capacity. So as JET, we've always been a critical friend to government. So we would criticize government, but not in the media. We would criticize it in-house with the DG or the minister or whoever else. So we played that role, but we've spoken out when we've seen problems. What I've seen the last couple of years is that there's actually just no response to that anymore. It's as if the government departments have become so fatigued with the criticism that we're just like on a spiral where capacity in government is a major problem. Can I interrupt you and ask you a question?
Yes.
You see Jet from the outside for 3 decades. What is your kind of sense of where Jet's gone over the 3 decades?
I think Jet had been a very good force in school education in terms of making us understand where the problems are, in terms of influencing the policies and the direction, and in particular the improvements and how to go about improvements in the schooling system. I guess I've kind of lost track with Jet when I got out of the schooling system. But when I was still very much more involved in the schooling system, I would look up and read a lot about what Jet says. They've been an authoritative voice, in particular in the curriculum space, in the teacher development, and in the monitoring and improving school system.